millions are at stake. A pivotal time in Abu Dhabi for a career. Alex Eala's phone started calling all of a sudden. Not from friends, but from sponsors who are prepared to permanently alter her life. The subsequent explosion was unanticipated. Everything changed overnight after only one game and one performance. This is the tale of how a Filipino tennis player transformed a single competition into a multimillion-dollar sensation, which is why the biggest companies in the world are currently vying for her signature. This was not where Alex Eala was supposed to be. Well, not just yet. The Filipino tennis sensation has already forged a career that most players can only imagine at the age of 20. Grand Slam Junior Champion. The first Filipino to take home a WTA Singles Championship. Every time she took the court, the pride of an entire country rested on her shoulders. However, the professional circuit is a very different animal. It's where promise meets pressure, where potential meets reality, and where careers either gradually sink into obscurity or are propelled into stardom. Eala had long been seen as the next big thing in Philippine tennis, the one who would eventually make a name for himself on the international scene. However, futures don't cover expenses. Doubters are not silenced by futures. And futures most definitely don't draw the kind of sponsorship funding that turns an athlete from a rival into a brand. Abu Dhabi was important because of this. The United Arab Emirates WTA 500 tournament was more than just a scheduled event. For Eala, it was a sign of approval, an opportunity to demonstrate her status as a member of the elite, and a stage so bright that everyone couldn't turn away. Although she had previously participated in larger competitions with more difficult opponents and higher stakes, there was something about Abu Dhabi that felt different. Or it was the preparation, or the timing, or perhaps it was just the time when an athlete's readiness and opportunity coincided perfectly. Eala brought more than just her racket bag with her when she came in Abu Dhabi. She represented more than 110 million Filipinos. In a nation where basketball and boxing had long eclipsed tennis, she carried the burden of being a trailblazer. She carried the expectations of sponsors who had put money into her potential but were awaiting evidence to support their beliefs. She might have been crushed by the pressure. It does for a lot of young athletes. However, this is what sets excellent players apart from mediocre ones. When the spotlight is at its brightest, great players flourish. They grow into the moment rather than retreat from it. As the competition got underway, it became evident that Alex Eala wasn't just prepared for Abu Dhabi, she was going to win it. Tennis insiders were keeping a close eye on her in the days preceding her debut match. Journalists who had tracked her from the Rafael Nadal Academy to the professional circuit, coaches who had trained her, and agents who realized that a single breakout performance could make all the difference. The murmurs were positive yet cautious. She may create a stir here if she plays her part and maintains her composure. Nobody could have guessed how loud that roar would get. Over the previous year, Eala's game has changed dramatically. Her forehand, which has always been a weapon, had become even faster and more accurate. She was able to retrieve balls that would have been winners against her younger self because of her improved movement on the court. Above all, though, she had improved her mental game. A focused, strategic opponent who recognized that tennis at the top level is as much a psychological struggle as a physical one had taken the place of the adolescent player who occasionally allowed her emotions to control her performance. Something snapped when she worked through her pre-match rituals and hit with her team on the Abu Dhabi practice courts. The circumstances seemed ideal. It felt like everything was ready. And everything came together for the first time in months, if not years. This wasn't your typical competition. Alex Eala has spent her entire life preparing for this moment. And whether she realized it at the time or not, the world was going to pay attention in ways that would fundamentally alter everything. Could she, however, bear what lay ahead? The tone was established by the first game. Eala entered the court with the kind of subdued assurance that unnerves opponents. Just pure, concentrated intensity. No theatrics, no needless emotion. The experience edge went to her opponent, a seasoned WTA veteran who was ranked in the top 50. She had previously participated in major contests. She has survived storms caused by young upstarts attempting to establish themselves. On paper, the veteran should have won easily. Greatness in the making is not taken into account on paper. Eala played with an unprecedented level of freedom from the first game. Her serve, which was usually dependable but not overwhelming, now had more bite. Her already powerful ground strokes were landing inches from the lines with a consistency that seemed nearly unattainable. She moved in a way that gave the impression that she had considered every angle and shot that could be made and had prepared a response for each one. The veteran made every effort to disrupt Eala's rhythm, cut, drop shots to test her court coverage, and strong top spin to force her behind the baseline. Nothing was effective. There was a counter-strategy for every tactic. All of the weapons were neutralized. As the match went on, you could see her opponent's realization beginning to show on their face. The player she had scouted was not this one. The young prospect who was still figuring things out wasn't this. This individual was functioning at an entirely different level. Eala won the first set with a score of 63, which was strong but not overpowering enough to make a statement without showing all of her cards. A masterclass 61 was the second set. Brutal, clinical, and lovely. Eala hit the game-winning cross-court forehand that left a mark on the court and flawlessly painted the line. More significantly, phones began to emerge as the mob exploded. Social media started to take off. Videos of her best shots began to go viral. Additionally, marketing executives began to pay close attention in boardrooms around Asia and beyond. However, a tournament is not created by a single match, and a career is not created by a single tournament. Eala faced an even more formidable opponent in the second round. A player in the top 30 who is renowned for her mental tenacity and consistency. The type of gamer who never gives you anything for free, grinds you down, and requires you to earn every point. The test was this. The majority of young players struggle at this point. When reality sets in after a significant first-round victory, the excitement evaporates. Eala passed with honors. It took over 2.5 hours of intense, excellent tennis over the course of 3 sets. There were times when it appeared that the veteran's experience would win out. In certain games, Eala's youth was evident, irritation seeped in, and uncertainty threatened to take root. However, she always managed to find a solution. A massive serve to prevent a break point. An attempt to gain momentum was done flawlessly. In a single stroke, a defensive lob transformed defense into offense. Something changed when she finished the last point and fell to the ground, exhausted and relieved. This was no longer merely a nice run. This was a declaration. This was Alex Eala telling the tennis community that she was here to stay. Eala's genius persisted as the competition went on. There were fresh challenges with every match. Different weapons were brought by each opponent. And every time, Eala managed to step up to the plate. Her opponents were being destroyed by her forehand. She had perfect court positioning. Her choice of shots demonstrated maturity beyond her years. The tennis community had taken note by the time she advanced to the semifinals. Superlatives were becoming scarce among commentators. Most significantly, her name was trending not only in the Philippines but worldwide, and former champions were tweeting their admiration. In Manila, the semifinals game was televised during prime time. In order to see their champion compete on one of the biggest tennis stages, entire neighborhoods gathered around televisions, offices stopped, and schools halted. Eala did not let us down. She played with both the courage of youth and the composure of an experienced player. An unstoppable combination. The Philippines erupted with joy when she won the match and guaranteed her place in the finals. However, the world was watching, and the festivities were only getting started because what would happen next would go well beyond tennis. Even though the final was set on Sunday afternoon, Alex Eala's life had already completely changed by Monday morning. She had given an electrifying performance in Abu Dhabi. Whether she won or lost the final, she had already surpassed all expectations. She had triumphed over more experienced opponents. She had demonstrated competence and maturity above her years. She had provided the most important moment in decades for the tennis community in the Philippines. However, nobody could have imagined what transpired in the 48 hours following the tournament's conclusion. Social media was where it all began. After winning the semi-final, Eala's Instagram following increased by more than 200,000 within hours. Millions of people watched her highlight clips as they were uploaded on various media. Celebrities from the Philippines were sharing posts about her. Her performance was being praised by international tennis professionals. In several nations, the hashtag Alexa was popular. Concurrently, However, chatter on social media is one thing. What followed was quite different. Instead of the typical questions regarding appearance fees or exhibition matches, Eala's management team began to get calls. Major brands, multinational sportswear businesses, international beverage companies, internet companies seeking Asian-Pacific ambassadors, and Philippine corporations seeing a chance to align with national pride had serious conversations. Not only was the attention noteworthy, but it was also unheard of for a Filipino tennis player. It turned out to be a perfect storm of talent, time, and cultural moment, according to a sports marketing expert. Eala was more than just a talented athlete competing well. She stood for something greater. She was a young, well-spoken, skilled athlete who appealed to a wide range of people. In addition to tennis enthusiasts, she also appealed to young women looking for role models, the larger Filipino diaspora, and companies attempting to break into the Southeast Asian market. In order to manage the surge in sponsor interest, her team had to schedule more meetings. Previously uninterested brands were suddenly pressuring for quick deals. Suddenly, businesses that had never thought about sponsoring tennis were looking at their choices. The sheer number and urgency of the questions was astounding. The reaction was considerably stronger in the Philippines. Newspapers published feature articles. Interviews are sought in the morning. Congratulations were tweeted by politicians. Increased financing for tennis development initiatives was announced by the Philippine Sports Commission. Eala was no longer just an athlete. She was now an icon of the country. Her current sponsors were just as excited. All of a sudden, the companies that had helped her along the way saw enormous returns on their investment. Their mentions on social media increased dramatically. Across all groups, their affiliation with Eala resulted in favorable brand sentiment. Within 72 hours of her performance in Abu Dhabi, one sponsor reported a 35% boost in engagement. Most importantly, though, young Filipino girls began picking up tennis rackets, signing up for lessons, and asking their parents about training regimens. The AY effect was sparking a grassroots movement and motivating the following generation in ways that went beyond personal success. Eala herself managed the unexpected attention with impressive poise. She maintained her modesty in post-tournament interviews, giving appreciation to her family, team, and the encouragement of Filipino supporters. She talked about how she felt obligated to represent her nation. Although she was aware of the strain, she chose to view it as inspiration rather than a burden. But the truth was more nuanced behind the scenes. Her team had to make tough choices. Which sponsors should be given priority, how to strike a balance between training obligations and commercial prospects, and whether to seize the opportunity quickly or take a more cautious approach to maintain long-term value. The offers were enormous. The financial shift was taking place in real time, with six-figure endorsement deals from Philippine brands, seven-figure approaches from foreign firms, appearance fees that exceeded her tournament victories, and every choice she made was extremely important. Eala's commercial worth rose by more than 500% in just 1 week, according to one marketing expert estimate. According to another, she is now the most marketable Filipino athlete since the heyday of Manny Pacquiao. These weren't only hopeful forecasts. They were based on real contract talks and offer sheets that took place concurrently in several markets. It wasn't whether Alex Eala's performance in Abu Dhabi would make her wealthy. That was already taking place. The true question was how she would continue to grow as a player while adjusting to this new reality. Because the most difficult part was only getting started. Let's discuss numbers. Actual numbers. Prior to Abu Dhabi, Alex Eala's yearly sponsorship income was projected to be between $300,000 and $400,000, which was reasonable for a young athlete but not as much as that of well-known celebrities. Her transactions mostly involved smaller foreign businesses and Philippine brands that were prepared to invest in potential rather than established economic value. The scene changed drastically after Abu Dhabi. A big international sportswear company made the first significant agreement. Industry experts estimate a 3-year contract worth roughly $2.5 million with performance bonuses that may raise it considerably, while the precise numbers are still unknown. In addition to stipulations for signature product lines in the event that specific ranking and tournament milestones were met, the agreement included clothing, footwear, and equipment. This was not altruism. This was strategic business. 4 months, the company had been keeping an eye on Alice's development, waiting for the ideal opportunity to present a sizable offer. That moment came from Abu Dhabi. Her performance proved she was capable of competing at the highest level. Her social media success demonstrated her ability to increase interaction. Beyond merely tennis, she was strategically valued due to her cultural significance in the Philippines and the larger Asian market. However, there were other people at the table as well. Negotiations for a regional ambassadorship were started by a large beverage business. Eala would become the face of their Asian-Pacific marketing campaign under the planned arrangement, appearing in advertisements, digital material, and promotional events. According to reports, the annual value exceeded $800,000, with opportunities for renewal contingent on sustained notoriety. Technology firms also recognized an opportunity. One electronics company offered to collaborate with them on youth development programs throughout Southeast Asia in exchange for product endorsements. Recognizing her appeal to younger, digitally native consumers, another tech business suggested that she serve